Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought since the dev server got updated, we would have a look at the new Italian Tornado that's turned up, because this actually now has its proper armaments and also proper secondary setups, so we can actually give a more accurate look at what this thing is. So this is the Tornado IDS MLU RET.8. This is coming into the Italian tech tree, and it's going to be folded with the Tornado IDS 1995. This is incredibly similar to the standard Tornado IDS. It just has access to some extra weapons, and also maybe in the future could get access to some even more interesting weapons systems that aren't in the game yet. So this is the standard Tornado IDS 1995. You can see what it looks like, and as I said, it's pretty much the same as what this one is, at least internally. You have the RE.23274 radar. This is just a track radar with a 50-kilometer range. It's really not that useful. Sometimes you can kind of set it up with the AIM-9Ls, but most of the time it's just there to see what's in front. Then you have two pilots. They have access to a lot of stuff. The main thing that I've always liked about the Tornadoes is the RWR system. This one specifically uses the RE.23284, which has a lot of good information on it, good bands, IFF, SPI, and then also it can track 8 threats at once and 32 launch detections, which is actually super good for this thing, since generally you are going to play this as CAS, or you are going to play this in in air to be able to just kind of bomb bases, so you need to know what's coming at you. It also has the 27mm Mausers, so this once again hasn't changed compared to all of the other Tornadoes. You do get a decent amount of rounds in them, 360 in total, which is quite nice, and this one is also powered by the Turbo Union RB199 34R Mark 103s. They give this vehicle a lot of afterburner thrust, but one of the things I have to say about the Tornado, this thing burns fuel like crazy. The engines themselves are nowhere near as efficient as other ones that are around, so you have to be very careful with your fuel usage, because you'll just run out super quickly, which is why having stuff like the drop tanks is so useful on these vehicles, because, well, you kind of need them. So that's kind of like the standard stuff, right? Like there's no difference here between any of these factors. So why is it a different vehicle? Well, it's the same BR, but it has access to enhanced weaponry. So you can see here is the modifications of the new MLU variant. It has JDAMs, LGBUs, and GBU-54Bs, and of course the 39s, whereas with the IDS, it only gets access to the GBU-16s and 24s. So that's like the huge upgrade that the MLU gets. It basically just gets better ground ordnance. It still keeps the old ones, such as the dumb bombs and the drag bombs, which are generally pretty good at destroying bases in something like air, but it also gets access to the JDAMs. You can see here it has 3 of the 2,000-pound JDAMs, the GBU-31s. It also gets access to paveways, so you have the paveway 2s, and also the Lightning 2 targeting pod, which is kind of the standard very good pod that a lot of the kind of NATO nations get access to. You also get the LJDAMs. These are the ones which have the laser guidance, but also have the GNSS. So what this means is you use a laser to laser them to the target. If it loses that laser guidance or laser target, then it switches to GNSS, and therefore it will hit basically where the last place you lasered. This is really good. It basically means that you don't always have to guide the bombs in as you go, and you don't have to, continuously look at stuff. Then you also have the other JDAMs that are around, the smaller versions of them, and of course the big boy, the 2,380-pound Paveway 3, the EGBU-24B. This one is massive. You can see it right here underneath, and then you have the GBU-39s. These are the guided glide bombs, which also use GNSS. These ones are really cool. They look awesome when you fire them, and that of course, is half the bother. You also have some more paveways, and of course the standard kind of chaff and flare pods. This thing doesn't actually have any countermeasures on it, so in order to actually kind of use countermeasures, you need to bring these pods, but luckily there's nothing else on this pylon, so you're always going to bring them anyway. The amount of chaff has always been really nice in the Tornado. Basically means that you can use periodic countermeasures and screw up a lot of radars without, ever getting kind of locked. It's very good against stuff like the TWS radars and also against ground radars, which is something you will run into quite a lot. So this vehicle has a lot of options compared to the other Tornado, but the basics are still the same. This is not something which is going to, blow anything away. It's not something that's going to make everybody like wonder, wow, I really want to play this Tornado. It's massively different than the other one. This one basically gives you access to kind of new munitions, and also at the same time it gives you access to a lot of kind of different setups if you want them with the vehicle itself. So you can see that you can bring stuff like the JDAMs and also the GNSS bombs together, and also access to the other standard weapons. So just to kind of give you an idea, by the way, so with the 1995, this one has just the dumb bombs that you can see here, the drag bombs, and then it also has the Paveway 2s and the Paveway Big 3 here. It also uses the CLDP targeting pod, so it has a slightly different one, and of course the countermeasures on top of that too. So basically the MLU, from a ground pounding point of view, is just a better version than the IDS 1995. And it's weird to see them at the same BR because of that fact. And also at the same time, the weird thing I've always found with these Tornadoes is why does this vehicle have access to the kind of really high BR in ground, especially over the other, sorry, not in ground, in air, just because it has like guided munitions. For some reason, that basically means that this vehicle, should not be able to kind of thrive and live. Instead, what you end up having to do is you end up having to just kind of get nuked by things that wander around. So you have the JDAMs, which of course are the GNSS ones, so you don't have to keep the lock, which is quite nice. You also have the cool targeting pod, just to kind of show you what that one looks like. So you have like the thermals here. You can see it's pretty high definition and a good zoom. It's the lightning pod if you have never used it before. And also, being able to not compromise, meaning that you can bring the AIM-9Ls alongside of the stuff is really nice. And also, of course, the countermeasures, which is quite cool too. It's also got all the other factors, so it's got variable swept wings, so you can turn a little bit better. You have, of course, these. You have the ACM mode, so you can set up the guns more properly, which is quite nice, but it's not something that you really have to worry about. It's mainly there for like using the AIM-9Ls, for example, and it does get the glide bombs, which are really cool. The actual internals as well are basically the same. Like nothing really changes here because of the fact it's pretty much the same vehicle. I'm sure maybe something like this might change, but you can see this here, which is really cool. This is the RWR. Kind of looks like it's off center right now, so maybe that can be fixed, or maybe it's supposed to be over here. I'm not sure. Looks really weird. But you have the hood as well, which is cool. And then also, if I have it set up, which I don't, but I can't remember which button there you go. It does also have the reverse thrusters, which is really cool at the same time. So if you didn't know, you can slave AIM-9Ls to the radar lock. So that's pretty much the only use for the slaving here, and also the EGS stuff. But mostly you're going to use this to hit bases and also hit stuff in ground forces. So I think as an addition, it's not bad. Grouping it is a good idea, just so this vehicle will be a little bit easier for people to grind. And I'm never going to be mad at another vehicle that has additional ordnance. The only question we have to ask ourselves is, when do these vehicles start getting different BRs based on the ordnance that they have? Because we now have a bunch of vehicles basically at the same BR which all have different ordnance, which all have different capabilities, but yeah, they all have the same matchmaking. It's kind of weird, and also kind of shows a bit of an issue with stuff like this, but we'll have to see going forward what's done with vehicles like this. You can also see how much fuel this thing burns. It really, really is fuel hungry at the end of the day. But also, it's super speedy, which makes it great to bomb bases. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.